All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the November meeting to order for the Board of Adjustments. We're going to start with our roll call. Who's going to do the? Okay. You got it? Okay. All right.
Wendell Miller,
Here.
Don Jackmore,
Here.
Justin Cawthorn, Wayne Cummings,
Here.
Josh Stroud, here.
All right, we have a quorum. Okay. All right. We have the minutes from the October meeting here. What's your pleasure?
I move we accept them as presented.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve October minutes for the Board of Adjustment. All those in favor, acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried. All right. We have no old business, new business, variance to Article 3.1.2, allowing a accessory structure in front of the majority plane of the primary structure, submitted by Christopher and Lacey Diggs. You got a staff report on that, Victoria?
Yes. Okay, as stated, this is a variance at 914 Chaucer Circle. Before we get into it, we just wanted to lay out the review criteria that you all have for all of the variances. So the first is that the applicant demonstrates special conditions or circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building and are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. Non-conforming uses shall not be considered. Make a finding that the application provided sufficient justification to grant the variance as the minimum possible to make use of the land, structure, or building. Make a finding that the variance is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations. The Board of Adjustment may prescribe appropriate conditions and safeguards, and you all are restricted from granting a variance that is not permissible or prohibited under the regulations. So just wanted to give that criteria because that's what the basis of all of our staff reports are off of. So the existing conditions, this is located at 914 Chaucer Circle in the Marina Heights District. This is an existing location of a single-family home. It is an R1 single-family residential zoned property surrounded by other R1 zoned properties. All surrounding uses are single-family homes. The application is to allow an accessory structure closer to the front property line than the majority plane of the primary structure's front facade. The request before you seeks a variance from Article 3.1.21, which states no portion of an accessory structure shall be closer to the front property line than the majority plane of the primary structure's front facade. In our review, the applicant is requesting this variance to allow them to construct a 20 by 20 accessory structure in front of their house. The applicant has demonstrated that special conditions do exist due to the topography of the land and the layout of the lot and the home, which you can see up on your screen. The lot is located at the end of a cul-de-sac, and the house was constructed towards the back corner of that lot due to a small stream that does run through the property, which you can kind of see in that aerial image there. The house is substantially behind the setback line, leading to space constraints for a potential accessory structure to be located in the rear area that would be permitted by the zoning code. The applicant will be meeting the zoning requirement, which requires all accessory structures not behind the rear facade of the house to substantially duplicate or complement visually the primary structure. And then additionally, the proposed accessory structure will meet all other setback requirements. So it is going to be behind that front setback line, and then it meets all the other setback requirements. So it is staff's recommendation that the Board of Adjustment approve this variance based on the findings that the applicant has demonstrated that special conditions exist. The applicant demonstrates a clear effort to honor the intent of this provision of the code, and the application demonstrates that this request is a minimum to make reasonable use of the land. Are there any questions?
All right. Thank you, Victoria. Was there anybody signed up to speak?
No one signed up to speak.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
I'm making a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this variance request as presented. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, item number 2, variance from Article 14 to allow a side yard setback of 2 feet instead of the required 3 feet, submitted by Barrett and Associates on behalf of Root Construction. You got a staff report?
Yes. So as stated, this is a variance at 1310 North Boston Place. The existing conditions, this is located again at 1310 North Boston Place in the Parker neighborhood. This is the location of an existing single-family home. It is an R3, medium high-density residential zoned property surrounded by other R3 zoned properties. Surrounding uses are single-family homes and duplexes. This application is to allow an existing, a setback variance for an existing structure. I don't know what happened to my text there, but it does seek a variance from Article 14, which is the area requirements table. This table states that the side yard setback for structures in the R3 zone shall be no less than 5 feet. The side yard setback for the existing structure was recently discovered to be 2 feet when the structure had a survey done. The applicant is requesting a variance of 3 feet from the setback requirement to make the existing structure conforming. The zoning code does have allowances for certain additions to non-conforming structures or structures that do not meet the setback requirements and allows them to be remodeled. So typically a variance like this would not be required. However, the title company is requesting the variance in order to close on the property. From the applicant's understanding, the house was likely constructed sometime between the 1950s and 1960s, meaning it was built prior to the zoning code and current setback regulations being in effect. As a result of that, it is staff's recommendation that the Board of Adjustment approve this variance request with the following conditions. That this variance only applies to the existing structure, so if the home is ever destroyed or torn down, another structure rebuilt, that structure would have to meet the setback requirements at that time. And this variance should not be considered if another structure is put in its place. And that is based on the findings that the applicant has demonstrated that special conditions exist, and the application demonstrates that the request is a minimum to make reasonable use of the land. Are there any questions on this request?
When was that the garage that is encroaching on the property line?
Yeah.
And that was built a long time ago, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this request as presented. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried. All right. Item number 3, variance from Article 6.1.8 regarding parking, Article 4.1 regarding wall height, and Articles 5.7 and 5.8 and 5.9 regarding landscaping, submitted by Site-Wise Civil Engineering on behalf of EJ Russellville LLC. You got a staff report on that?
Yes, and I do apologize, this one's going to be a little long-winded because I've got a few requests there. So this is at 1401 East Main Street. It is located in the East Main Commercial District. This is currently a vacant parcel along East Main between Knoxville Avenue and North Sydney Avenue. This is the location of the old driving range and where a service station was operated along the street frontage. This is the future location of Olive Garden Restaurant. In this area, you'll find a mixture of commercial development from service stations to restaurants and retail establishments. The applicant's request is for 4 different variances, 1 to the parking stall size, 1 to the wall height for a proposed trash enclosure, and 2 to the landscaping regulations. So on that first request, the applicant is proposing to reduce the length of the parking spaces from the required 20 feet to 18 feet with the intent of encouraging customers to pull fully into the space, thereby keeping drive aisles clear and improving site maneuverability. This would maintain a 25-foot wide drive aisle to maintain adequate clearance for both customers as well as delivery trucks. After reviewing the request, it does appear that the reduction in space length is reasonable, as it would still provide sufficient space for most vehicles while enhancing the overall flow of traffic on the site. Given the applicant's rationale and the potential benefits for site functionality, granting this variance could be considered appropriate under the circumstances, particularly since it would support improved circulation without compromising the intent of the parking standards. The second request is proposing an 8-foot-high wall for their dumpster enclosure despite the 6-foot limitation. Article 3.22.55 states that screening service yards, utility meters, and hardware mechanical equipment or refuse areas and or potentially unattractive places from public view shall be accomplished by the use of walls, fencing, planting, or a combination of the measures that follow. So the dumpster enclosure is attached to the northeast corner of the proposed building. You can kind of see it highlighted there in yellow. And the 8-foot height is being proposed to appropriately screen all the equipment and storage in that area from the public view. So although the applicant is requesting a higher height taller than what is permitted, they are aligning with the intent of the code by screening an unattractive area from public view. Our third variance request is to Article 5.9.4, which states that planting islands are required every 16 parking spaces. The applicant's site plan has 2 rows of parking spaces, again highlighted there in yellow, that do not meet this requirement. The applicant has stated that RDOT required changes in the drive placement, resulting in a loss of parking spaces on their site. And adding the required islands would lead to an insufficient number of parking spaces for the development, as 118 spaces, what they have proposed, is the minimum amount that Olive Garden as a brand will allow for a development. So, sorry, again, we've messed up somehow on the text there, but this does prioritize maintaining a minimum number of acceptable parking spaces. And they have shown that they have 2 other planting islands in different locations, which are highlighted there in blue, that would not otherwise be required by the code. So while they aren't meeting them in those specific locations, they are meeting the intent of that code in these other locations. The site constraints, required parking, and other planting island locations could be considered reasonable justification for this request. The fourth and final variance is requesting relief from the strict application of Article 5.7.2, stating that 1 large tree for every 50 linear feet of the right-of-way frontage is required. So this is for the street tree section. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow the 5 required trees be small understory trees instead of large trees, due to the location of power lines, which you can kind of see highlighted there in yellow, near where those trees are going to be. So allowing the applicant to plant 5 understory trees or smaller trees instead of the required 5 large trees would meet the intent of the code while preventing future conflicts with existing utility infrastructure. So all of that to say, staff does recommend approval of these variance requests from Article 6.1.8 regarding parking, Article 4.1 regarding wall height, pardon me, Article 5.7 and Article 5.9.1 regarding landscaping as a result of the findings that the applicant demonstrates a clear effort to honor the intent of these provisions of the code. The application maintains good civic design and is in visual harmony with surrounding properties. The applicant has demonstrated that special conditions and circumstances exist. The application demonstrates that this request is a minimum to allow reasonable use of the land, and all other variance guidelines have successfully been met by the applicant. Are there any questions on that one? That was a lot of information.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Can we act on all the variances at once?
You can make one motion, yes, sir.
Well, I move we approve the variance request.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this request as presented. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried. All right, item number 4. Variance from Article 3.22.52 and 3, Article 3.22.6 regarding wall articulation and roof line articulation and vehicular cross-section requirements. That's a mouthful. Submitted by Aldi on behalf of Reco, is that Reco or Rico? And Rico LLC. Sarah, take it away.
I don't know how to pronounce that, mainly because I haven't looked at that so closely. I've been concentrating on other portions of the application, so. Like you said, this is a variance from those items regarding articulation and cross-connection for the Aldi grocery store being proposed. They will have a large-scale development that is heard by the Board of Adjustment after this meeting. The existing conditions is that this is a 2.46 acre parcel along East Main Street. It is zoned highway commercial with varied commercial uses. It's located across from Walmart, where the old Motorsport Authority building is located. And we see a variety of commercial development in this area. Splash Car Wash, Chili's Restaurant, AutoZone. I can go on, but there's plenty of commercial businesses in this location, or in this area. So the review comments, it is a little bit of information because they have several different variance requests. So the first one is to vary from Article 3.225-2A, which states buildings shall avoid long, uninterrupted facade planes and or blank walls, and no uninterrupted section of the facade may exceed 50 feet in length. There are some proposals before, or there's one proposal before the Planning Commission tonight, and another proposal that the City Council just approved where this may not have had to be a variance request, but we're still in this time when they do have to go through these variance requests. So it would have just been able to be approved at the staff level if everything through the Long-Range Planning Committee had moved forward. So the applicant demonstrates that they meet the intent of the regulations for the facade outlined as the east facade, and I do have the site plan on this slide that shows west, south, and east so you know which side they are. The side that is not labeled is the side facing Main Street. So none of the requests that they are requesting regarding these variances are for the side facing Main Street. So not the forward facing vision of the store. They meet the intent. They highlighted the use of the rain screen slats, stating they achieve visual outward projection. So as you see, I did include the east side projection or image so that you could see that it's going to look like they have met the articulation requirement there. For the west facade, the projection would make the building too wide for the lot, complicating its fit on an already constrained parking area. So they have so many parking spaces that they need for the site, and if they had to move that building 2 feet to the east to meet the articulation requirements, they would be constrained on how much parking they could fit on that site. Additionally, any projection along that west side would be located behind their cooler, which would create space prone to trapping, condensation, raising maintenance, and operational concerns uncommon to other structures. And then for the south facade, a projection would interfere with the truck well, introducing potential safety hazards and logistical challenges. These conditions are specific to the applicant's site layout and necessary functions, and a literal interpretation of the code would prevent the applicant from implementing a practical, safe, and maintainable building design. The second request is to vary from the articulation requirements regarding the roof line. So from the front of the building facing Main Street and from that side facing the parking lot, you can tell that they have the varied roof lines. It's not just one straight. It's the rear of the building, and it's that west side that's adjacent to the other side lot line that they're requesting variances from. So they do demonstrate unique conditions exist that are specific to the building's design and site and requiring variances to maintain functionality. For the side lot line view, adding a combination for a sloped roof which, as you can see, that little arrow points to the sloped roof, or extending the rain screen slats would disrupt the gutter system that is shown on this side lot line view. That last arrow there shows where their gutter line is. So if they had to add the rain screen slats or any of the sloped roof, it would change how they are dealing with the stormwater runoff from the building. That alteration would impose challenging engineering complexities, especially as the side is not visible from the main street. So that's that side lot line. And then on the second street side, similar challenges arise due to the sloped roof and articulation of rain screen slats. And since this side serves as the back of the building, it does not impact the building's public-facing aesthetic, minimizing its visibility and restricting design choices commonly available to others. Lastly, the review comments for their final request is regarding cross-connection between sites. Adjacent parking lots shall be linked or shared parking areas provided which can serve neighboring buildings simultaneously. Access easement shall be shown on the site plan to provide cross-connection to adjacent properties. Due to the nature of the building's use, customer safety is a critical concern, especially as patrons will be navigating the area with carts, children, and other pedestrian traffic. Enforcing cross-access would increase potential conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians for a connection to the west, creating a hazardous environment for customers and employees alike. The layout challenge is specific to the site's anticipated pedestrian volume and differs from other properties where vehicular cross-access might pose less risk. Literal application of cross-access requirements would deprive the applicant of the ability to prioritize safety measures that are commonly upheld in other properties with similar foot traffic patterns. All of that to say it is staff's recommendation to approve the variance request to Article 3.2252, 3.22, I guess it's 5.3, and Article 3.2261 as a result of the findings that the applicant demonstrates a clear effort to honor the intent of the provision. Application maintains a good civic design and is in visual harmony with surrounding properties. The applicant has demonstrated that special conditions and circumstances exist. The application demonstrates that this request is the minimum to make reasonable use of the land. All other variance guidelines have successfully been met by the applicant. Are there any questions?
We have somebody that
Yes.
wants to speak on behalf of this request. If you would step to the microphone and state your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Joseph Howley. I'm a civil engineer with CEDC, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Aldi Incorporated. I also have Chad Lane, a director of real estate with Aldi in the audience, to present this. And got a PowerPoint here that's kind of set up for both the Board of Adjustment or the Board of Issues and the Planning Commission. So I'll just skip to the parts that have to do with these variances for now. We can come back to this when we do the actual large-scale development site request. So we are considering the three variance requests: the wall articulation, the roof line articulation, and the vehicle cross connection. I'm going to skip through a few of these slides. These are more related to the large-scale development. The location, I'll highlight that a little more. We'll zoom into the site here, existing site. But I really want to try to get down here to the variance exhibits that we set up. So when it comes to the wall articulations, the relief that's required, we have these rain slats, which I think are intended, they're actually part of our typical building layout. They provide an architectural aesthetic appearance, but they also provide a measure of protection. They are a rain slat. It prevents a lot of water running straight down the face of that onto the windows. So, but it also does give an appearance of relief. You can see in the upper left is an actual close-up of that. These are aluminum planks that make up this slatted system, and really that, I think, is what we're trying to present as meeting the intent of the articulation. If we go down, we can see that, no, there's a little highlight. That is an actual picture, not just a rendering. That's a picture from a recently constructed Aldi store. And this is kind of relating to articulations on the back of the building. As Sarah alluded, there are issues with the roof system, and if we were to put articulations where those blue boxes are on the plan view, that would be a bump out in the building. We would either have to fill it in with insulation, and this area is right behind the chiller room, the coolers for the Aldi store. It's really a concern of condensation and moisture being in that we would have a empty space of that 2 feet or whatever the bump out would be. In addition to that, that would make the building 2 feet wider, and as Sarah said, we're kind of stuck width-wise on the lot with the parking lot, the drive aisles as we need them to be, the sidewalk along the building, the setbacks on either side. Really no room. If we move that 2 feet away from the west property line, it really kind of messes up the layout of the site. So that's what we're trying to use as a basis for our request for variance on that. This is showing specifically the request for variance from the south wall. If we were to have a bump out and a wall articulation where that blue box is in the truck well would have to be that much wider. The building would have to be that much longer. It would be a design issue with the building. These are prototype buildings. They're set up to be, and in extenuating circumstances, we can make some adjustments, but this is kind of in a critical area. Along that wall, too, we typically have a lot of our utility panels, the electrical panel where the water comes in there often. So it would be a really difficult spot to put a wall articulation on that side. That's the south side of the building. This is the roof articulation issue. This is looking from the west, no, I'm sorry, from the west at the west side of the building. We're not articulating the wall on that side, or I should say the roof, but you can see projected from the other side, the large entryway, the sloping portion circled in green, and that actually gives it an appearance of some articulation on look line. But for that wall itself, that roof line is flat there. We have a gutter system along there that collects. The roof all drains to that side, so it drains from the east to the west. It would present quite a bit of difficulty if we were trying to make some type of roof line articulation in that point. This is the same thing looking from the south. We also don't have a roof line articulation along the dock, but again, that tower feature at the main entryway is visible from the back, so it will project all the way across there. I don't think we have a specific slide on the cross access, but I will go back here to the site plan. So we're proposing access to the two roadways, and we are requesting a variance from having to have access to the adjacent properties to the east and the west. On this view, north is to the right, towards Main Street. In the northwest corner, which here is the upper right, we don't really have a good lineup with I think that's the Arkansas Auto and Tire Store. Their site doesn't really fit with ours, so an aisle there to connect it's not going to line up very well. In the lower left, we have quite a grade change here that would also prohibit an extension of a drive aisle or a connection of the drive aisle to the adjacent property. In the lower right on this, we also, right now there is no connection, and we would like just kind of maintain that and not make a connection to I forget the store that's actually there, if it's the Dollar Tree or something like that. So we're really just proposing connection to the streets and no cross access to the neighbors. So in regards to the variance request, I believe that's what we'd like to say at this point on that. We'll come back to the main thing in the next meeting. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this variance request as presented. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried. We have no further business. We are adjourned.